Welcome into the Big Spill, where I'm here with the four-time Pro Bowler, a former NFL MVP, and current CBS Sports analyst. It's Rich Gannon. Rich, thanks so much for joining us, my man. How are you doing?
Scott, I'm doing great. Happy New Year. It's been a wild run through the first 17 weeks of the NFL season. And, of course, it wraps up this weekend, and I can't wait.
No doubt. The playoffs are finally here, right around the corner, and Happy New Year to you and yours as well. Let's hop right into things, though, Rich. Let's start with the team that you won an MVP with and helped lead it to a Super Bowl. What do you make of the Las Vegas Raiders benching of Derek Carr, obviously going with Jarrett Stidham to end the season? And where do you think their future at the quarterback position lies?
Yeah, I haven't really spoken to Josh McDaniels or Dave Ziegler, anyone within the organization. I mean, obviously, I've watched all the games. I call the preseason games. I just think the organization has made a decision not to bring Derek back in 2023. And I think, they've had a good year here to evaluate his body of work. And I think they want to move on. Now, whether or not Jarrett Stidham is the long-term answer, I would say he got off to a really good start against the number one defense in football last week. I thought he made big-time throws. I thought he played well. Sure, a couple he'd like to have back, but I think you have to find out, right? So it's an opportunity for the Raiders with two games to go, starting last week's game, to get a sense of who he is, what he's capable of. He played really well in the preseason. I was really impressed with his body of work. And I think the Raiders have to make a decision on who the quarterback is going to be in 2023. It's a good opportunity to take a look at Jarrett Stidham here for the final two games.
No doubt. What do you make of Derek Carr's season? Obviously, his first season underneath, Josh McDaniels. Do you think, he kind of played himself out of, Las Vegas, or do you think this was more of a, kind of a similar situation to what Josh McDaniels did years ago in Denver, where he arrived there in Denver? Jay Cutler was there. Jay Cutler wasn't his guy. He shipped him off elsewhere to kind of get his guy in the building. Do you kind of see a similarity here, or what do you make of that?
Well, when you say, not your guy, the question is if you want to replace a quarterback, that's fine, but you better make sure you have someone to replace him with, right? So if you're not sure that Jarrett Stidham's that guy, there's no guarantee the Raiders are going to get a quarterback in the draft. It's not going to be a great free agent market. Good quarterbacks aren't on the street in free agency. So, I always say buyer beware, right? So, my sense is that, you look at Derek Carr's body of work. In fairness to Derek, there's been a lot of turnover and change around him, and that's never good for a quarterback. So a lot of different coordinators and systems. He's had a couple different head coaches throughout the course of his career. He's never really had a good defense around him. And I think that's made his job more difficult. But at the end of the day, we're judged on wins and losses. He's got more losses than wins as a starting quarterback in this league. He's turned the ball over a lot this season, really a lot the last two seasons. And that's ultimately what did him in my opinion. I think it was time for them to take a look at Jarrett Stidham. And my sense is that they'd already decided that he wasn't going to come back in 2023. Why not take a look at the young quarterback?
No, that makes sense. It's going to be really interesting this offseason to see what the Raiders do at the quarterback and where Derek Carr ends up landing, because, he's going to be somewhere probably with an opportunity to, win some meaningful games. On to the team, Rich, that you got your first NFL action with. That's the Minnesota Vikings. Which version of this Vikings team is the real one? Is it the version that's undefeated in one-score games this season, or is it more like the version that gets dog-walked by the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Packers?
Scott, I think it's somewhere in between, right? I mean, you mentioned some of those ugly losses to Philadelphia, to Dallas, falling behind 33-0 at the half to an Indy team, the losing record. And, of course, what happened last week at Lambeau, they turned the ball over 4 times. They didn't play it well. I think they're a more competitive team. They've been better in late-game situations. They were 2-5 in games decided by 4 points or less a season ago. This year, as you mentioned, they've been really good in those situations. I think Kirk Cousins has played well enough. I think the issue right now is their defense. They're 31st in total defense. They're dead last against the pass. Yeah. I think they've given up more explosive plays than any other defense in football. And I just don't think it's sustainable. I just think that you can't rely on Kirk Cousins to go and the offense to go out every week and score 30 points. So something's got to give. The issue I have right now is the play of their defense.
No doubt about it. That's dead right. And obviously a lot of criticism is going to be hurled at, Kirk Cousins, and maybe rightfully so. But as you mentioned, this is one of the worst defenses in the entire NFL this season, and really hasn't even gotten better. It's more of an aging, defense, especially in the secondary. You're relying a lot on Patrick Peterson, who, while he's still a good player, he gives up some plays, clearly. So that's going to be an issue that they're going to have to figure out before this, gets too deep into the playoffs. I want to move here, Rich, because I co-host this podcast with Ellis L. Williams, who covers the Carolina Panthers for the Charlotte Observer on their beat. I want to talk about their quarterback situation. Obviously, with Sam Darnold kind of taking the helm here recently, playing pretty well, had the Panthers in, a control your own destiny type of scenario before their loss to the Bucs on Sunday. What do you make of Sam Darnold and really the Panthers quarterback room here moving forward?
I think the Panthers will be in the quarterback market. There's a handful of teams that I think really need help at that position. I think the Carolina Panthers are one of them. I think Atlanta's another one in that division. Tampa Bay Buccaneers may find themselves in the same boat if Tom Brady retires. And, of course, New Orleans Saints. There's no guarantee what's going to happen with Jameis Winston. So, it's not a good situation to be in. There's probably going to be 10 or 12 teams that are looking really hard at ways to upgrade and improve the talent in that quarterback room. And clearly the Carolina Panthers are going to be one of those teams. I just, when you look at Sam Darnold's body of work, I just don't know that you can trust him, right? I think he's had problems with decision-making, with ball security. That's one of the reasons they ran him out of New York. It's one of the reasons he's been sat down a couple of times in Carolina. He has played better here the last couple of weeks that he's gotten a chance to play. The crazy thing about Sam Darnold is physically, he's got a lot of the skills and the intangibles that you love at that position. He's athletic. He can move around. He can extend. He can manufacture some plays with his legs. He's got a good enough arm. But it's really what hurts him is from the neck up. I mean, the decision-making at times is just too much to overcome. And I think, he's got to understand that when you turn the football over, there are consequences. And most of the time it involves being sat down, right? And I think he's got to understand that you can't put the team in harm's way. And he's running out of opportunities. He really is. That's the problem with Sam Darnold in Carolina.
No doubt about it. Yeah. I mean, I think it's been encouraging to see him play better as of late. But yeah, again, it's going to be another interesting offseason to see what the Panthers do and where, he might end up if he doesn't stay in Carolina. Let's move down to South Beach, though, because I've heard you recently have some thoughts on Tua Tagovailoa, who's personally one of my favorite quarterbacks. I think he's one of the most criticized guys at the position in the entire NFL. And again, maybe rightfully so, but, aside from, the concussion stuff, which is very serious, and we're hoping that, he's able to, recover fully, and, get back on the field if he's able to. What do you make of, Tua's kind of, breakout season here in year 3, where he spent some time in MVP conversations? And, what do you think his future is in Miami?
Well, I think hopefully, as you said, his health is not an issue, and I think he'll definitely be back under center as a starting quarterback in 2023. I saw a lot of growth and development from Tua Tagovailoa in this year with Mike McDaniel. I think they're clearly on the same page. I think Mike's built an offense around what Tua likes and does well. He's got a history of doing. I think he's thrown the ball better and more accurately with better anticipation down the field. These last, 4 games haven't been as good. When you look at the completion percentage, some of the turnovers. But for the most part, I think if you step back and you look at what he has done, I think you got to be really pleased. And I think it's something to build on. Remember, this is still a very young quarterback, and there's been a lot of change around this young quarterback. A lot of system changes, a lot of play caller changes. So finally, he's got some stability around him. And Mike McDaniel, a coach that I think sees the game through the eyes of the quarterback, coach that believes in him. And I think better things are in store for Tua in 2023.
No doubt about it. I can't stand, and you mentioned it. This is still a very young quarterback. And I really can't stand the notion and the trend of, just giving up on quarterbacks at the NFL level so early. I mean, again, we've seen Josh Allen struggle as a rookie, be just a little bit better as a sophomore, and then turn into one of the league's best quarterbacks in year 3. And we're seeing that here, recently with some other guys. Jalen Hurts is another example. Struggled early on, finally get in a good situation, get some good pieces around him. And again, we're seeing that with Tua. We just need to give these young quarterbacks a little bit more time, I think, Rich.
Right, what? So many people don't understand the importance of the development of that position and how long it takes. I mean, Peyton Manning was 3-13 in his first year in the NFL. A lot of interceptions. I think there is a process. You mentioned Jalen Hurts. I think that's a great example of how he's really turned a corner. I think Justin Fields has a chance to do that next year in Chicago, right? I think the Chicago Bears are keeping their fingers crossed in hopes that he can be the next Jalen Hurts, right? Because Jalen The area where Jalen's really gotten better is functioning from the pocket, right? Better decision making, better anticipation, better accuracy. And I think that's what we need to see from Justin Fields. But you mentioned Josh Allen. Josh Allen, his first year in the league, completed 52%. Everyone said he wasn't a very accurate quarterback. Then the number went to 59% in the second year. Then the third year went to 68%. Now all of a sudden, he's an MVP candidate every year. It's amazing. What all of a sudden changed? Did he all of a sudden become a very accurate? He just woke up? No. He started to have a better understanding of protections, better understanding of pass game concepts, better understanding of footwork, a better understanding of fronts and coverages and pressures and what defenses are trying to do. More reps in the system. I mean, you start putting all that together for a guy that's has a high football IQ, a guy that's got a great work ethic. The game's important to him. Good things are going to happen, and I think we're starting to see that with some quarterbacks like Tua Tagovailoa.
Preach, Rich. Talk to him. And I completely agree about Justin Fields as well. I think he's going to be the next guy to take that next leap in kind of a year 3. Again, it's obviously, important that they surround him with the right pieces and coaching as well. But I expect that for Fields. Last question I got for you, Rich, before we get up out of here. We talked a little about Jalen Hurts. We mentioned him. Has Gardner Minshew's and the Eagles' struggles over the last couple of weeks given validity, do you think, to Hurts' MVP case? Or is this just a Patrick Mahomes award that he has to, run away with?
No, I'm one of the 50 voters for the Associated Press Awards. I've won that award in the past, and I really appreciate what Jalen Hurts has done. I think you see how important he is to that football team when he's not in the lineup. Now, I think it's important to play every week or as many games as you can. I think it'll be important to see what he does this week. If he comes back this week and has a big day, I think that could certainly help his chances, but he's certainly on my short list for the NFL MVP award.
No doubt about it. He has to be. He's been spectacular this season. So is Patrick Mahomes. I would give him the edge just on his consistency and doing it with less pieces that he's had in the past. And again, the Chiefs are right there at the top, the AFC. So that'd be my answer. I love Hurts as well. He should be right there in the mix. But that's going to do it for us. On to the big spill here. But for myself here and Rich Gannon, thanks so much for joining us, Rich.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks for checking out this segment of The Real Spill. For the full episode with me and Ellis L. Williams, who covers the Carolina Panthers, click below. Otherwise, click up here for more great original content, and thanks for watching.